Alucard's whole arc throughout this season is just sitting down and moping and having a threesome. His whole arc is just, I'm sad, I'm lonely, two cute Asians come along, we have sex, and then I kill them. Castlevania Season 3 is possibly my least favourite of the three seasons that have been released. Me saying this, it's not bad. It is by no means bad. It's still fantastic. It's still highly one of the best video game based media adaptations I think I've ever seen. Outside of comic books, obviously. In terms of TV shows and movies, this is probably the best thing you're going to get. This and the Sonic the Hedgehog movie, which I haven't seen, but from what I hear, it seems like that's a faithful adaptation of the source material as well. This, I know barely anything about Castlevania. What I know about Castlevania is Dracula's in it. The main character has a chain whip weapon, and that's it. It's basically one guy versus Halloween monsters. The most I know from Castlevania is from the Starbomb song that they made about it. But this show has made me fall in love with everything. The best part of the show was Dracula, and obviously at the end of season 2 they killed him off. Do I think the show is missing something because Dracula's not there? No. There is a little tease to bring in Dracula back at the end of the season, but I don't think we're going to see Dracula make an actual, proper appearance until way further down the line. I never thought that Castlevania would get 3 seasons. I never thought that they would do it this way, and I didn't realise it would be as deep a character-driven thing. Obviously, the dialogue is a bit all over the place, and the voice acting sometimes is a bit off, but the main elements are there. It's animated well. The action scenes are great. A lot of the dialogue is good. Some of it is a bit cheesy, but when it needs to be good, it's good, and when it needs to actually mean something, it does most of the time. My biggest problem is that it's just a bit of a mess. This season's just all over the place a little bit. So we're following 4 main storylines. We have Alucard just killed Dracula. He's got to look after Dracula's castle and the Belmont Trove, the Belmont Dungeon, which has all of the history of the Belmonts. And he's just bored. He's moping around. He's got nothing to do. And these 2 Asian people come to Dracula's castle and are like, our town just escaped an infestation of vampires. We need your help. Train us to kill vampires. And this ends with them not trusting Alucard by the end of it, so they try to kill him. They have a threesome with him. There's a lot of sex in this season, especially in the second half. There's a lot of sex. So they have a threesome with him, then they try to kill him, and instead he ends up killing them. That's probably the least interesting part of the season, just because nothing really happens until right at the end. But when we do get the action which happens in the last 2 episodes, the rest leading up to that is mostly dialogue, and then the last 3 episodes, that's when you get a lot of the action, and it works. It feels like you've earned the action. It's not just like, oh, we'll have action in every episode so that the audience doesn't get bored. We'll have action when it feels necessary, when it feels right, when we've had stuff build up to it. What Trevor and Cypher are doing. Cypher is still one of my favorite characters. She's just great, isn't she? She's just, one of the best characters in the show. What they're doing is they've come into this village. There's something off with it. There's this mysterious magician guy, and there's this cult that are trying to bring Dracula back. So they're doing all this blood magic and this occult magic, and they end up opening a portal to hell, and they almost bring Dracula back. The portal's sealed, everything's fine, but they find out that the actual judge, the person who rules over this village, this town, has been killing the townsfolk. He's been sending all the naughty kids to this apple tree. He's like, there's an apple tree right at the edge of the forest, and what he doesn't tell them is that actually there's this patch of grass that's covering these spikes, and if they fall onto the grass, they fall through onto the spikes and die. And he's collected all the clothing, the shoes and stuff of these naughty kids, and he's been keeping them, and we don't realise that, we don't find that out until the end of the season, and it's very disturbing. We then have what Hector's doing. He's being held captive by these 4 vampire ladies. One of them is trying to make him trying to earn his trust throughout the season, and ends up doing that through sex, and ends up Hector becomes their slave, and that's what Hector's doing throughout the season. He's just a captive throughout the season, and that is all just dialogue, and it's just him trying to. He's not really trying to get out. He's just falling infatuated with this woman, with this vampire, and the vampire's just playing him like a fiddle throughout the entire season, and nothing really changes for his situation there. And the most interesting part of the season is what's happening with Isaac. If you remember, Hector and Isaac were working for Dracula in the last season. Hector ended up working with Carnella, which ended up with him becoming captive. Isaac was sent through a portal and put into the desert. He's now got an army of night creatures with him, and he's going around cities trying to get more night creatures, and he's adamant that all humans need to be exterminated. And then he gets shown kindness by this elderly bloke, who ends up giving him another mirror, and then he's promptly threatened to leave after he's just said he was just leaving. The threats may have been because he had an army of night creatures with him, who knows, but he's essentially learning that humanity is a bunch of assholes and we all need to be exterminated, essentially. And his whole character arc is that he learns throughout the season mercy. And I don't know if he's going to become a good guy or if he's going to become a really, really bad guy, like Dracula level. if he's going to be the one that brings Dracula back in the next season or not. As I was saying, Isaac's storyline is the most interesting, and he's the character that I'm most interested in seeing where the next seasons takes him, because he's the most redeemable, I think, out of the two. Hector, I guess he's been redeemed. I don't know. I think there was probably an easier way to get Hector to work with the vampires, rather than like having him revoke all of his like human privileges. I guess he is getting like a house, food, clean water, and regular sex, but you know, there would have been an easier way to get him to work with the vampires than what was actually going on in the season. But as I said at the start, this season's a mess. It really is. There's no through line, and the characters that you're meant to be most invested in are Trevor, Belmont, and Cypher, and that actual storyline takes a back seat to everything else because there is so much going on. Everything may have its everything may build up to something and may like have its moment in the next season, but I feel like in this one, just too much happens and not enough happens at the same time. All the payoff is going to be in the next season or in seasons to come, and I both like that and don't like that, but because there's so little episodes in each season, I feel like that works here. But at the end of the day, the show's beautifully animated. Its action is so good. There's so much flow. It's so kinetic. You see in anime too often that when it gets to a actual fight scene, it either tries to pan away from the action, or it just becomes a slideshow, and it doesn't look clean. It doesn't look crisp, and it just shows that the animators got lazy. Here, there's none of that like lazy tactics. There's you're always focused on the action, and the action always looks good, to the point of the whips always like flowing, like everything, all the little details are there. And yes, some of the bigger monsters do look a bit like Devilman Crybaby-esque. If you've seen that, you know what I mean. But it still looks very good for a Netflix anime. It looks like there's been serious effort put into making this feel right, to make this feel good. There's no actual villain. There's no real, like, you're not rooting for the characters to get somewhere, because the place that they're meant to be getting to isn't there anymore. Like, for the first two seasons, it was like, we've got to beat Dracula, and whenever you're with Dracula, like, I see why you're doing this. But now, it's like, you're with these characters that you care about, but they're just floating now. And and I feel like seasons to come will bring in that reason for them to still be around, and the reason for there to still be a show. But I feel like this season is just it's just the filler season. It is really the season where the status quo will change. It is a filler at the end of the day. entertaining, very well executed, and funny. I feel like a lot of people aren't talking about how funny Castlevania is. Just the dialogue and the way people talk is really, really like damn funny. Like, you got one character and they're having this like conversation about toilet paper because he's rather like aristocratic, and another and the other person is just like, he's the leader of this town, and the guy's like, what does a man have to do to get some decent toilet paper around here? And he's like, what the fuck is toilet paper? And he's like, it's Chinese. That's funny. It's funny, and I think it adds like extra weight to it being funny. The situation that we're in now, when no one's got toilet paper, or like you've got that one person that's just got a fort of toilet paper, and then everyone else is just like, oh, for fuck's sake, I've gone in Iceland just for toilet paper, and the shelf's fucking empty. It's like, yeah, it's a really entertaining show. It makes you feel good. You're invested in all the characters, but it means nothing because there's nothing for the characters to aim towards. There's no, like, Trevor and Cypher are literally like, we've got nothing to do. We'll stop off in this town, and I guess we'll sleep for a few days, and then they find out the town's cursed and it's a bit evil, and people there are doing nasty things, and then they're like, oh shit, we better get in a fight then. And Alucard's whole arc throughout this season is just sitting down and moping and having a threesome. His whole arc is just, I'm sad, I'm lonely, two cute Asians come along, we have sex, and then I kill them. It's as simple as that. So I liked this season, I enjoyed it, I have a lot of fun watching it, but at the end of the day, nothing really happened. A lot changed, there's a lot of character growth, but there's no real waypoint. Nothing really progressed, apart from you got to know a bit more about the characters, because the first two seasons were just action, and these episodes were more downtime, getting ready, preparing for more big things to come. So yeah, I'm excited for Season 4. If you watched Castlevania Season 3, let me know what you thought of it in the comments below. I have a Discord, I have a Patreon, I have an Instagram, I have a Twitter, all linked in the description below. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.